When you're young, I think everyone has those dreams that are pretty much impossible. Those dreams like, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a dolphin, or I want to be Brad Pitt, or something equally fleeting. My dream when I was younger was that I wanted to play rugby for England. My dream now is I just want to play rugby again. Everyone's dreams change when you grow older, for sure. They sort of downsize when you realize the impracticalities of it. You realize you can't actually become a dolphin. My dream changed for a different reason, though. I got too ill to chase my dream. In 2012, aged 13, I was diagnosed with CFS. CFS is a sleeping disorder. It stands for chronic fatigue syndrome. It's also known as ME, which stands for something long and Latin that I'm not even going to try and pronounce for any of you. Before that, it was known as yuppie flu. This term has sort of gone out of fashion, however, because it belittles the illness and makes it seem less serious than it actually is. CFS is a serious illness, however. It affects 250,000 people in the UK alone. That's around 1 in every 260. These 250,000 people will all be suffering in unique ways, with maybe different symptoms than the next person. The only common symptom amongst them all will be this, funnily enough, chronic fatigue, this constant tiredness. Other symptoms include migraines, nausea, muscle and joint pain, weakened immune system, forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, sort of this mind fog. And then, to top it all off, the vast majority of people with CFS will have difficulty actually getting to sleep. So your body will be screaming at you to go to bed, and then you'll go to bed, and then you'll be lying awake until the small hours of the morning, or you'll be waking up during the night. It's a pretty awful set of symptoms. My favorite analogy for CFS is it's like you're living your life one day, and then all of a sudden you get ripped out, and you get put in a movie theater, and you're watching your life go past on the big screen. And it's like it's on fast forward. All of your friends, they're running about, they're doing their own lives, they're doing their own things, and you can't interact with them. You're trapped behind this screen. Everything's moving so fast, and you can't actually do anything about it. It's a very isolating illness. You feel very alone, and it's very sudden. I share this story with a lot of people with CFS, I got ill one day. I took 3 days off of school with a sore throat. And in those 3 days, I went from playing rugby 3 times a week to staying in bed for 20 hours a day. And that's not an exaggeration. I was literally too tired to do anything else. My routine was literally wake up at 1 p.m., have a sandwich, watch Bargain Hunt, have a bath, because I needed it, and then go to bed again at 4 p.m. That was it. That was my life for a good few months, about 3 to maybe 6 months. That was all I could do. So what causes it? What causes this sudden illness? I mean, seriously, do any of you know? Because I don't. Nobody else in the world knows. It's a very mysterious illness. Studies come out, and one will come out one day and say, we figured it out. It's the red blood cells, the cell membranes, they're not functioning properly. And then 6 months later, someone else will come out and say, you're wrong. It's actually the white blood cells, they're attacking the wrong things. And then Jackie down the road will just say, it's all in your mind anyway, get over it. It's definitely not the last one, I can tell you that. There's many theories as to where it originates from. I'll share some of my favorites with you. Mobile phones, something to do with the wave patterns interfering with your brain. Genetically modified plants. Vaccines, of course it's vaccines. And then my personal favorite is that the reason I'm so ill is due to the sins committed from mankind on the earth. I mean, and that's not even my fault. Like, come on, guys, what did I do? So the problem with this is if there's no known physical cause, there's no easy way to diagnose it. I'm massively oversimplifying here, but the way a good doctor would diagnose CFS is you'll take a whole heap of blood tests, and they'll say, well, it's not meningitis, you're not anemic, you're not diabetic, you're not pregnant. We're going to just say you've got CFS. And that's massively oversimplifying. I have known people go months or years without a diagnosis, unsure of what they have, what's wrong with them, and how to get better. So that leads on to the next thing. How do you get better? Well, like I say, there's no known cause. There's no known cause, so there's no known cure. There's no pill I can take, no surgery I can take to fix me. the only known cure is time and effort. I mean, I say that. There's 3 things that everyone with CFS will have been told will fix them right out. Those 3 things are, like I said, it's all in your mind, get over it. Yoga, and certain herbal supplements, if you get my meaning. They don't work. Not that I... Anyway, the only cure is time and effort. You've got to put in the work. You have to meticulously plan out your everyday activity and slowly add ever so slightly more every week or fortnight or every month, slowly climbing your way back to normality, to where you were before CFS. And it's awful because all of a sudden, 1 week, your progress is just smashed apart. You're reset by months at a time, and you have no known reason why. So it's slow, and it's painful, it's awful, and it requires much more patience than I think most teenagers would ever have. So, the last thing I want to say about CFS, and this is probably the most important thing, it affects people in different severities. Like with the symptoms, some people may experience different ones to the next person. Some people experience CFS way more intensely than others. I've known people be in wheelchairs because their legs hurt too much to walk. I've known people be hospitalized and bedbound. I'm able to stand here and talk to all of you. I'm considering myself one of the lucky ones because of this. Now, here's where the talk can go one of 2 ways. I can either bring out the violins, tell you a sob story, say, oh, woe is me, and make you all start crying. But I want to do something different because I feel like that's been done before. What I want to do is I want to try and focus on the positives that I think have come about from my CFS. Now, I don't want you to sit there and think that that means I'm glad I've got CFS. There's not a day that goes by where I don't wonder what my life could have been like without it. But I think that's the first thing you learn with a debilitating illness like that. You learn how to look on the bright side. Now, I'll spare you my singing, but it's very important to look on the bright side of life. Seriously, when you go from doing so much to so little, it's very, very difficult. In fact, I'm going to say it's impossible to not feel incredibly depressed. You feel worthless. You look at what you used to be able to do and what you do now, and you feel really inadequate as a person. And it took a long time. It takes a lot of thought to realize, for me to have realized why it was that I was feeling so bad. It's because I was focusing on what I used to be able to do, not on what I could do now. I was focusing on the bad part of my life instead of the good parts, like the small things. And it took a while for me to realize that the way to move on, to deal with the bad parts, is to focus on the good. Now, I'm not saying you ignore the bad parts, because if you ignore them, then they just get bigger, and you feel guilty about it, and you end up back to square one again. But you've got to focus on the good parts and acknowledge the bad parts. Deal with them when and if you can. You've got to find a balance. That's almost the second positive. You find a balance in life between good and bad, focusing on the good, dealing with the bad. And that sort of leads on to my second point, an appreciation for the smaller things. I mean, like I said, when you go from doing so much to so little, you really are starved for a lot of inspiration, a lot of stimulus. You go from hanging out with friends all the time, talking to people, to hardly even seeing your best mate. You've got to really search for the good parts in your life. You've really got to look out for the, things that give you joy, like the clouds. I mean, the shape of clouds. I'm obsessed with clouds. I can't leave a building without going, oh my God. Seriously, clouds are beautiful. You all need to appreciate them more. Like the gradient of the sky, your friend's smile. You find little things that really give you joy. Okay, I'll give you an example. Again, looking on the bright side of life. I had to drop a year in school due to my CFS. That's something I really didn't want to do. But because of that, I met friends who I would have had no way of knowing otherwise, no chance to actually come across in my life without dropping the year. That's brilliant. I've met people who I now can say are my good friends, who I love. There are positives in life. You've got to find the small things, focus on the good, shift your perspective. Now, another thing about shifting perspective, the next positive I've found, is I've realized just how lucky I am. Now, this is where some people sort of raise the pitch of their voice, tilt their head and go, really? To me. But seriously, I consider myself to be really lucky. I mean, look, right? Like I said earlier, I've met people in wheelchairs because of CFS. I've met people be hospitalized because of CFS, and I'm able to stand and talk to you. That's huge. That's amazing. I've got two incredibly supportive and loving parents who have always been there for me throughout it all, who I know I can turn to no matter what. Equally, I've got a whole host of friends who I really love and I know I can go to in my times of need. Even this school, they've been massively supportive. I've known people get kicked out of their school because they're too ill to attend. But this school has done a lot for me. Is there more they could have done? Yeah, maybe. But have they done a lot anyway? Of course they have. And am I amazingly appreciative of that? Absolutely. I'm not just saying that because I'm under their building right now. Now, that's not to say that things haven't gone badly for me. I mean, I've had this for 4 years now. I've known people who have just had it for a few months. But it's about shifting your perspective, focusing on the good. That's the main thing. Everyone in this room, everyone on the planet can think of something that they're fortunate to have, whether it's your dog or your parents or your partner or that sandwich you made that was just perfect on Friday. You are lucky, you're fortunate to have had something, It took years of me feeling unlucky to realize that actually everyone's a little bit lucky. Just depends on how you look at it. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is I've realized just how much I can do. Now, this is another head tilt, pitch raising, really? Moment. But I realized I can do a lot. I mean, yeah, there's a lot I can't do. I can't play rugby at the moment. It's just physically impossible for me. But I can still watch rugby. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, like a compromise. But just because there's a lot I can't do doesn't mean there's not a whole world of opportunity still there for me. It's not a bad thing to compromise sometimes. Like, all right, I can't go to Australia and go surfing with my friend, but I can go there and still hang out with her. I can't go to Alaska and rock climb with my friend. I can go and just talk to him. There's a whole host, a whole world of things that are still there for the taking. It's not about focusing on what you can't do. It's about focusing on what you can do. Focus on the good things. Shift your perspective. Appreciate the small things. It's all about your perspective. The way you approach life will affect what you get out of it. And just because your aspirations, your dreams may have to be downsized in life due to factors that you have no control over, just because your dreams shrink, it doesn't mean that they're not still worth chasing. All right, that's me done. Thank you.